So I would like to welcome our guest, author Cash Lambert. His new book is Surf Therapy, the evidence-based science for physical, mental, and emotional well-being. Cash, welcome and thank you for being here.
Yeah, stoked to be here.
I was going to say really excited for this, but I feel like it would be more appropriate if I said I'm super stoked to get the surf lingo started.
Well, I thought about calling in from the beach or from the water, but that wouldn't have been a good idea. So that was my initial idea, but we're here now, so it's all good.
So as you know, most of our audience are behavioral health clinicians. So I think your topic will be very new to a lot of us, and I think we're very interested in how we can incorporate it into our treatment plans if possible. So let's start by explaining what is surf therapy.
So we'll use the definition that the International Surf Therapy Organization uses, and they define surf therapy as the intentional, inclusive, and evidence-based use of surfing as a therapeutic vehicle to promote psychological, physical, and psychosocial well-being. So, at face value, it may seem like a group of people just going to the beach and surfing, but when you break it down, when we look at surf therapy from a definition, from how it's really run today, there's a lot of parameters involved. There's a lot of guidelines and things like that. So it is it's grown. I've got to see that firsthand, and it's become an event that used to be just kind of, hey, we'll take kids to the beach and see what happens, to, hey, we're doing this with specific therapeutic goals in mind.
Okay, so it's really more than just surfing makes you feel good and we have some benefits from it. It seems like it's a true therapeutic modality that clinicians are using to help their clients.
Right, exactly. And it at first it sounds kind of strange, right? And that was the reason I was interested in it, because I said surf therapy. I surf. I feel better after I surf, but surfing as a form of therapy, that sounds pretty interesting. But there has been a lot of data and a lot of studies recently. And if you think about it, all surf therapy is at its foundation is going into nature
Mhm.
and experiencing what nature can provide. And one of the things I talked about in the book is how surf therapy is maybe new to us and kind of our westernized perspective, but surfing as a form of therapy was not new to native populations, such as the native Hawaiians, right? They used surfing as a means of therapy. It was something that they didn't even think about. It was just something they did, and they understood it far better than we did. And I think truly we're just now catching up.
Okay. So could you explain a little bit more about the history of surf therapy and then how it came to be a true modality in therapy?
Yeah, so I can tell you my experience with it. I was in college in 2010, and as part of my college curriculum, I pursued journalism. I didn't pursue behavioral studies or anything of that nature. You had to do volunteer hours, right? Volunteer with an organization, and so I did a few things that weren't really fun. And I heard about this group taking kids with autism and special needs surfing. And I said, I'd love to surf. I can go. And I was a journalism major, like I said. And so I said, I'll bring my camera. I'll get my volunteer hours. And if there's a story to be told, then I can certainly write about it for my school newspaper. So
Mhm.
I went there expecting to just get volunteer hours. And I left profoundly struck by the fact that lives were being changed on the sand. That's a very dramatic statement, right? But I was at the beach and they were taking children with autism surfing, right? And I was in the water. I was in the water with the kids, with the participants. I was on the beach with the moms. I was helping in every aspect, and the moms are crying. You know, the kids are saying their first words. The fathers are taking pictures. The volunteers, who are also, college classmates of mine, are saying, I'm going to change my major and pursue occupational therapy, behavioral studies, because of how incredible this experience was. And so I left the beach. I said something profound is happening here. That really began the start of my first book called Waves of Healing: How Surfing. I have it here. How Surfing Changes the Lives of Children with Autism. That was the first book, and it looked at how surfing was therapeutic for 10 different children on 10 different levels of the autism spectrum, and how surfing addressed every single one of their situations, right? And their diagnoses. And that was the first book. After that book ended, I got a phone call from the International Surf Therapy Organization, and they said, "Hey, Cash, come to our conference and talk about your book." And so I went to that conference expecting to talk, but not expecting to listen. I think that was a really important thing. At that conference, I heard about how surfing was therapeutic for veterans, people with cancer, family members of people with cancer, women healing from trauma,
Mhm.
people who have cancer from radiation in the Chernobyl region, um, just the people in townships who are healing from trauma, and inner city children in America. So that was the impetus behind the second book, Surf Therapy, which obviously Courtney you mentioned. And with all of that, I'm kind of going a long way to answer your question, but with all of that, the surf therapy industry was growing in real time as I was a part of it. So when I jumped in 2010, there was no surf therapy governing body. There was maybe two or three surf therapy organizations that I knew of, one of which I was volunteering with in Florida, called Surfers for Autism. But it was kind of a wild west. It was brand new, I would say. Kind of right when I got into it, it was really kind of blowing up. At the autism surfing events, there'd be 10,000 people. I mean, it was insane. There'd be news crews. I mean, it was huge because no one had really heard of this thing, and it was new and it was working. I think that was the biggest draw. It was really working. Um, so after that, I got to see the surf therapy industry grow, and as part of the book, I got to look back at kind of how it all happened. And it goes back to obviously Native American populations who were using surfing as therapy. How do we know that, Courtney? The reason we know that is we can look back in their literature and you can see hints and tales and in their lore of how certain characters within stories from ancient times use surf therapy for certain things. They never called it surf therapy.
Mm.
That was obviously the challenge of trying to find it, but they would go surfing for healing. They
Mhm.
would go surfing after battle. They'd go surfing in order to relax and unwind as a community event. And that was obviously that hundreds and thousands of years ago. As far as where it comes into play now, it really came into play in kind of early 2000s and 2010s, and it wasn't something specific. I think a lot of it was autism was a really big thing at that time. As far as the numbers, and surfing was a huge part of that. Surfing was a big outlet for that, and so obviously I was with the organization in Florida. There's an organization in California doing that, and ever since kind of the early 2000, 2010, 2011, it's kind of blown up to where in 2019 I go to this conference and they're saying, "Hey, Cash, I mean, whatever affliction that there is, there's now a surf therapy group
Mm.
that does that." And that was all. I think the key thing, Courtney, is that it wasn't run by big financial backing. It wasn't a big strategy. It was people who were touched by that affliction,
Mhm.
whether it was that person or someone in their family or extended family, things like that. That person saying, "Hey, I'm going to go and take this on because I've seen it work firsthand. Now I'm going to take it on." I think that's really the backbone of surf therapy, and what makes it different is that it's again, it's not a big insurance funded massive thing. It's really truly passion, and people who say it doesn't matter what's going to come of it. These people or even myself, need help. I know surfing works, and we're going to take them surfing. And so it's been really cool to see the progression of we've seen hints back in back centuries ago. Obviously, it began to really kind of blow up into kind of these festival type events,
Mm.
structured surfing at these festival type events in the 2010s. And then now, anywhere you go, anywhere on the globe, anywhere in the country, here in the U.S., you can find a group taking a certain population surfing for that specific need.
Wow. So not new, but really gaining a lot of traction within the past like 15, 20 years.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of that, and I don't want this to come across as I have an agenda to say modern medicine isn't working. That's not me. My background is actually in storytelling. I'm a media guy. I love writing books. I love telling stories that haven't really been told or stories that should be told. And so I'm not saying that modern medicine isn't working. But the truth is, for every affliction that you can read in my book, the current treatment, there is not a 100% success rate.
Hmm.
And a lot of the people who have come in and said, "Hey, I want to help this," come out of that, they've experienced it themselves, and they say, "I needed something that really," for example, veterans with PTSD. A lot of the surf therapy groups today are veterans, former soldiers, right, with active duty combat who said, "Surfing helped me. The current modalities did not help me.
Hmm.
Surfing did, and so I'm going to promote that." So that's really the background.
Right. So you mentioned, and in the book too, I think you did a really good job of different types of population of people or clients, and it's not just one type. It seems like it started, your journey at least with the autism, spectrum population. But like I said, it went through a whole variety of different, disorders, different difficulties. So what are some of the benefits that you've seen? Because we know, I think most people are familiar with, being by the salt water. The ocean has some healing, properties, but surfing obviously takes that to a different, a whole nother level. So what are some of those specific like benefits that we are seeing from surfing specifically?
The better question is how much time do we have? Because it can go on for forever. It started at the baseline, right? It increases mood, being in the water. And again, what we're talking about is specifically surfing. Being in the water, yes, it's therapeutic, but we're talking about specifically being on a surfboard with a group of volunteers, a group of volunteers, instructors, and actively riding waves. But number one, it's a mood enhancer. It's a mood booster. And that's something anyone, regardless of what the affliction, can experience. It can give you a sense of accomplishment. So you never surfed before, it's hard because trying to stand on a narrow piece of foam on the ground is difficult. Trying to do that in the water is certainly more difficult. So it creates a sense of mastery, and you say, I want to master this and get better at it. It also create a lot of people that I spoke with said the same thing. They said, whenever I'm in the ocean and I'm surfing, it kind of feels like I'm getting a hug from the ocean.
Mm.
There's something, there's something inherently good about being in the salt water, being in nature, and then riding it. The one key thing that I had heard, and I was a little bit skeptical of it because it's a really powerful statement. But the act of surfing mimics drug use, right? Drug use and abuse, and very similar to a runner's high,
Yeah.
right? With endorphins and things like that. So when you're riding a wave, if you just think about, I wish I was there showing it right now, but if you're riding a wave, you are in this blue ocean with a blue sky and the sun out. It's beautiful. And as you're riding, in addition to that environment, and I should say also water can kind of give you a feeling of cleansing, right? Inherently, as you're riding a wave, you're getting a blast of endorphins. And so there was several people I interviewed who were former drug abusers, and they said, I'd gone through typical therapy, didn't really work, but surfing gave me an adrenaline rush. It
Mhm.
gave me that runner's high because they didn't like running, which I totally understand. And they said that it wasn't as powerful as one person I spoke with had abused meth. So obviously it wasn't as intense as a meth high, but it mimicked it, and it kind of gave me a high that could kind of get me through that initial rehab process,
Mhm.
right? And again, I heard that before the research, and I said, man, I don't know if that's true. That can't be true. And I'm digging into it. And I'm like, yeah. I was talking to doctors. They're saying, yes, Cash, it is true. So that was really, really powerful. When you get to, I think that one of the other things too with surf therapy specifically is the sense of community. So a lot of these groups, if you're going to be a volunteer or an instructor, mostly an instructor with the group, you have to be kind of a part of the community. In that there's a group called Surfwell. They take police and surf responder surfing in the UK. And to be a instructor in the water with the participants, you have to be a member of the police force or the first responders so that you speak the same language.
Right.
so that there is a community sense of, hey, as a instructor to participant, I know what you're going through. I
Hmm.
know what I've been through that, or I have know someone who's been through that. And in the book, you can read how there was two or three instances of people with depression who were not contemplating suicide, but had it planned.
Hmm.
And they'd gone to one of those events and had one of those conversations with one of their instructors while trying to surf, and that's what backed them away from it. And that's what saved their life. And these are stories again that I was like, this is incredible. Like this is life saving. And so as far as we talk about the populations who are in wheelchairs. There's a group called Life Rolls On. They
Hmm.
take amputees, paraplegics, surfing. That, I mean, I think we can all understand how that's therapeutic, because if you're confined to a wheelchair and now you're in the water surfing, if they two or three people said it feels like I'm flying,
Yeah.
right? You can get out, you can get exercise, you're doing something unique. You have freedom. That was the founder, Jesse Billauer, great friend. That was the thing he said. He said, "Hey, you just feel free because you're confined to a wheelchair for so long." One of the other interesting benefits, Courtney, was with cystic fibrosis. Obviously, that's the situation where you have thick mucus in your lungs. You need to take a load of medicine to help thin that mucus. Salt water. That there is a. It's interesting. They excuse me. They have a saltwater form of treatment that people will inhale, that's prescribed, right? You go surfing and you get that same kind of saltwater inhale as you do that's prescribed. And
Right.
that's free. That is nature based. That is, you don't need a prescription for that. You don't need a cope insurance carrier or a copay for that. So I'm trying to think of who else. There's also a group that takes participants surfing who are live in the Chernobyl region, who are
Mhm.
still experiencing radiation, high levels of radiation and cancer. And I'd have to look at the stats in the book, but I think their radiation levels, they take them from that area and they take them to Ireland and keep them there for about a month or so, and they surf constantly and do other outdoor activities. During that month, I think that their radiation levels would decrease by 40%. The
Wow.
numbers were just,
Mhm.
I'm reading this, I'm like, why has no one
I know.
talked about this before? Like these are the kinds of stories that should be told. And so I
Hmm.
think that's really the big thing is you look at surf therapy and say, okay, well, it's kind of it's a mood enhancer. It's a runner's high, makes you feel good. But you look at the data with PTSD, with veterans, with people who have depression, and they come out saying, "Hey, like I feel better. This kind of gives me a purpose, an activity, a sport to, people who mostly benefit from just the community alone. From that, being able to talk to people who understand their situation, and and again, I'm not someone who's going to say there's, that therapy when you're inside four walls with a therapist is wrong. I'm not going to say that whatsoever. But the people I spoke with said when they took therapy out of the office and onto the beach with volunteers who knew what I was going through, knew everything about that situation. My therapeutic journey accelerated rapidly, and so I think when you kind of pile all that on top, you kind of say, why are we not doing this more? And I think that was really the impetus behind the book,
Hmm.
behind the two books. And so, yeah, so that's the great thing about surfing is that with modern medicine, certain medicines have certain effects, and obviously side effects. We can get into that later, but it can only affect certain things.
Hmm.
You talk about surfing as a therapeutic means. It can help anybody going through anything at any time in their lives, whether you are young, old, doesn't matter your education background, doesn't matter your ethnicity, doesn't matter what you've been through. And obviously, I could talk for days about this, but there is a group that takes Syrian refugees surfing in the UK, and the benefits are insane in terms of positive reinforcement, identity, things like that. And then even children who were taken surfing in townships in South Africa, to where they not only surf for their own benefits, but many of them came back and said, "Hey, I want to be an instructor. I want to be that next kind of lead by example person in my community. And then it kind of goes from there, right? So there's a lot of additional benefits that you wouldn't ever expect that I discovered as I read this book. So all that to say, Courtney, I mean, there's so many benefits, and it doesn't matter what you have or what you're bringing.
Mhm.
The ocean and surfing can definitely help, and I've got the data and the testimonials to prove it.
Yeah, I mean, it really sounds like a holistic approach. And I do ecotherapy with a group of small students who are dyslexic. And we always talk about like the benefits of nature, and we're kind of confined to just woods. We don't go to the beach or anything. And it's funny because they're like, "Oh, you keep saying like nature fixes this and that and you feel better." And I was like, "But you do. It really does help like every aspect, of it." Um,
I think that's something we've kind of lost, and I'm not going to only speak for myself in this regard, but we're indoors so much, we're on our phones so much, we're underneath white lights, so much. Then you go outside and you feel better,
right.
and then you look back at native populations who had none of the things we have,
Hmm.
none of the modern medicine, none of the modalities, none of that. I mean, it was a part of their culture. It wasn't something they like. This is a conversation about surf therapy. In ancient times, they would have never had this conversation because it was understood. It never even needed to be discussed. It was you go surfing, you're going to feel better, regardless of what it is, whether you're coming back from battle, whether you're going, whatever it could be, that can be an elixir of sorts. Obviously, it's not a magic pill. It's not going to you're not going to go surf, come back, and suddenly everything's going to be fine. But we did have several instances of going back to autism specifically, which was my first go with it, where you had, with autism, usually around two, this is very general, but usually around two, the child will speak and develop. Around two, there's a recession, a regression, excuse me, and then the child, in some instances, will stop speaking and become nonverbal, right? And so we would have many instances of a child gets to the beach, is absolutely losing their minds, right? Just freaking out, panicking, which I understand. I would do the same thing.
Right.
I would do the exact same thing. It was never oh, like, what is that kid doing? I was like, of course, like, why? Like, I'd be shocked if somebody was calm going into this.
Right.
Get them in the water, suddenly they're calm as can be. It's shocking, and then they're running waves, and suddenly they're talking. And that's when I first said, I'm sitting on the beach with their mom, and the mom is just weeping, and I'm like, what's happening? And so that's where I would say, hi, I'm Cash. What's your story?
Mm.
And she would say, my child is 9 years old, 10 years old, hasn't spoken in 8 years, 7 years, and these are the first words the child saying is awesome, or yay, or look at me, mom. And
Oh,
the mom's crying. I'm just like, what? Like, what is happening? And then the moms would often say, the parents would often say, for about 2 or 3 weeks afterwards, that the child would be uniquely calm after
mm.
that. It almost would be like, and then after 2 or 3 weeks, they'd kind of notice a change. They'd say, "Oh, hopefully we can go surfing again." So
Right.
just very almost shocking stories. But then when you go back and you think about it,
Mhm.
and just how nature feels good, it kind of makes all the sense in the world.
Right. So, can you walk us through like a surf therapy session? And I'm sure there's some people that are hesitant, to try it. So, kind of what's like the treatment plan, not to get too clinical about it, but what would be like the treatment plan for a surf therapy, session? And what's the role of the surf therapist?
Yeah, so I mean, it depends on the population and the organization, obviously. But you'd get there, you would sign in, fill out forms, communicate if you're brand new to it, communicate the challenges, the strengths and the weaknesses, things like that. Afterwards, there's usually a meeting with the master instructors and the volunteers as they
Mhm.
kind of weigh the conditions, understand the plan for the day, the timing, things like that. And then after that, it would be the participants get involved where they meet the instructors, and they kind of have a debrief with the parents, right? That could go on for 5 minutes, or I've seen it go on for an hour, just trying to, it depends on the participant, right?
Mhm.
How calm the participant is or not. And then after that, it's in the water. And so it can be scary in the sense of a lot of the instructors say, okay, you ready? Let's go. It's very much we're not going to really like talk about what's going to happen. We're just going to get out there and go. There is beach instruction, of course, right? So if the participant is able to stand and do things of that nature, it's hey, are you going to be left foot forward, or are you left-handed or right-handed? Okay, left foot forward, right foot back, or vice versa, right? You get into the water, and then there usually is going to be a team of volunteers. So usually one to two people near the shore standing, usually one person in the middle of this kind of line, and then obviously two, usually a master instructor, um, and then a person with that master instructor on with the participant in the water, kind of in deeper water. So it's kind of two, one, and two.
Mhm.
And then depending on the organization, the group, the instructor would either push the participant on a wave and say, hey, a wave's coming, push the participant on a wave, say up, 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 say go, 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 kind of whatever was communicated in that beach instruction of, hey, when I say this, you're going to paddle your hands and stand up. That's communicated. The person kind of in the middle of this conveyor belt will kind of monitor it, make sure the person's going by okay. If the participant falls, that person's there to grab them immediately. And then at the shore is obviously the remaining two instructors or volunteers, and they're there to kind of catch the board, catch the participant before hitting dry sand. Obviously, sometimes the wave will take you all the way into shore, so you don't want to make sure the participant actually falls on
Mhm.
a hard surface. And then beyond that is the parents and the cheering section. I think that's a big thing that typical modalities don't have is where you have your own cheering section.
Mhm.
Parents, volunteers. That's one of the big things when you volunteer at one of these events is, hey, you're going to be a cheerleader the entire day. You see someone riding into shore, you don't know what it took to get that person to do that. So we're going to celebrate everything. So Courtney, I've never had a cheerleader personally. I would love that. I would love to be able to have people cheer me on as I write books and things like that. So when you're going to these events, you're an active participant and encouraging. And that goes a long way, especially for a lot of participants who may have never had that in their life.
Mhm.
And so that's a part of it. A lot of these events, there's music playing, there's other things. If it's an autism event, there could be sensory activities, right? Um, and then usually what will happen is you go to this event, you surf once, that's great, but you're always going to want to do it again,
Mhm.
right? And so it's kind of a heat format. You may surf at 9 a.m. and then maybe your next time will be 1 p.m. and then again at 4 p.m. So it's never a kind of we're going to surf once and then you're done. It's kind of a let's surf, multiple times in that specific day, and then how can that person join the greater community of that group and surf consistently, depending upon um, their afflictions, their tolerance to it, things like that. And obviously, when you look at and even when I went to some of these events where they were taking people in paraplegics, people with spinal cord injuries, surfing. I mean, that sounds terrifying from a participant standpoint and from a instructor standpoint.
Mhm.
And those organizations specifically have way more guardrails involved as far as boards, right? The boards are going to be way more specific.
Mhm.
If it's going to be a cerebral palsy participant, you're going to have a surfboard with a chair strapped or glued to the surfboard. The person's going to be strapped in, life jacket, and there's going to be in that situation probably anywhere between 10 to 20 volunteers just for that person. So it's not oh, the person's going to wipe out. Let's hope for the best. It is a very structured and safe environment. And that's all. Obviously, I'm not attached to one of these organizations, but everyone I've seen, I've always been impressed with how safe and structured it is based on that participant's needs and afflictions. And so, as a parent, I mean, I had to have two little girls, and if I went to one of those events, I would have reservations just as much as the participant, as the kid. And so, as an instructor, the goal is to obviously have that plan in place, but also communicate that to the participants, to the parents. some of these parents may be returning who have been, they've done it, 20 times. Some of
Mhm.
these people, the hardest thing that they've ever done was to show up on the beach that day. And so I think as an instructor, you have to be it's very easy to show up. It's kind of hot, you're at the beach. It can be kind of hectic. It's very important to be very aware of that and understanding of that because I've, as I don't know, I don't know if I want to claim this, but I've probably been to more surf therapy events than anyone throughout the past, 10, 15 years. I've never met someone who said, I'm never doing this again. I'm out. I'm out of here. Like, I'm never coming back. I've never met someone, and I'm always at the shoreline, always in the water. Everyone loves it. And so that's going to be the case, in my opinion. The goal is on the beach to ensure that is also the situation with the community, with the instruction, with making everyone feel like, hey, we've designed this to be a safe, inclusive, every word you want to include there, space, and that's going to be in the water, on the beach, in the parking lot, things like that. So everything that I've seen has been very impressive, and at the end of the day, it all leads to, hey, how can we have a good, safe, most importantly, therapeutic experience for the participant here at these events, and I've been impressed every step of the way.
Hmm. So it sounds like they do a lot to ensure like a successful experience. It's not just go out there, see what happens. There's really things put in place so people kind of get, the most of it. And so it sounds like too, it's more like event type things to kind of get you started. It's not you meet with your surf therapist once a week, for 8 weeks, like to start, but it's more of that community feel and almost to get people interested in surfing, but also get the like the benefits of it like quickly. So they kind of want to keep coming back.
So yeah, yes and no. That's obviously speaking from like my background with just the surfing and autism, because they put on large scale grand events where you to get thousands and thousands of people there. Everyone's different. Every single group is different. There's one group in Australia founded by a clinician who he had a client who just was not improving.
Mm,
I believe it was depression, anxiety, things of that nature. And the person just like everything he tried, it just wasn't working. And he said, as a clinician, it was my duty and my job to find a solution. I can't just say, well, I tried everything. Like that's not really an acceptable response. And he was a surfer, and he said, look, surfing makes me feel better. And he
mm,
said, let's go surfing. And at this was probably, I want to say 2012, 11, somewhere in that range. So surfing was not a widely known and accepted form of therapy. And he told me, he said, Cash, I risked my license to take this client surfing. He said, I put so much work into my license, the money behind it, all those things. A lot of the people here obviously know that. And he said, I risked my license for this, but I knew this would help my client. I knew it for a fact. He took his client surfing, and that was it. Like that was the solution that the person needed. And that person's therapeutic journey really accelerated after that. So his group specifically takes people out of the hospital type environments
okay.
and inpatient environments, takes them to the beach. There is no big event. There is no grand, thing. And this is in Australia. And so it's really every organization, every clinician, every person is going to be different.
Mm,
I think that's what, whatever you're looking for, the great thing today, you can say the same, about this 10, 20 years ago, but today you could find that if you're looking for an event on the weekend that you can go to, you can find that. If you're looking for, a clinician who is just going to be doing more one-on-one on the beach, you can find that. And if you need help, just let me know and I can help. I can try to help find that person for you. But that's one of the stories that still is just shocking to me is that in the UK, surfing is prescribed. It
mm,
is you can get a prescription for surf therapy, and it is through a group called the Wave Project,
mm,
and they got funding to research it through their government, and the government saw the effects of it. It was proven to them, hey, this is working, this is beneficial.
Mhm.
And so now, if you go to a doctor and you say these are kind of my symptoms, and it kind of qualifies within that surf therapy range, they will write you a prescription for surf therapy, and you will go. They will put you in touch with that group, and they will come. If you can't make it to them, they will come to your house and pick you up and take you surfing. And so, again, my background is originally with those big events, but the great thing is like I said, you can find whatever you're looking for today, you can find it.
Mm. I think that's amazing. And I hope, and I know some Nordic countries prescribe like nature for,
Yeah.
for therapy. And I'm hoping maybe in a couple of years, our country will be like that. But so obvious question, if you're not around an ocean, how do we get people involved in surf therapy?
Oh, that's the great thing is that technology today is advancing in so many ways. And before the notion of going in the ocean if you're not near the ocean is impossible. Today it's not the case.
Mm.
So there's been a huge growth in wave pools or surf parks. They're called multiple different things. Some of these are at amusement parks. Some of these are at inland destinations, things of that nature. And it's a massively booming sector, and I've got to experience that and be a part of that myself. So now, the Wave Project, for example, they'll take participants surfing inland at a wave pool at a surf park that is hundreds of miles away from the ocean.
Mhm.
So these pools, obviously, they can create waves and they mimic that surf therapy experience. So if you live way inland and you don't have the means or the resources to get to the ocean, but it would help you, that's where wave pools come in. And if there's not a wave pool near you right now, just wait because I'm a part of the global governing body with surf parks and wave pools. They meet once a year, and it's booming. And the amount of wave pools that are planned for the next decade, it would shock everyone. It's incredible here in the U.S., in Australia, in the U.K., abroad, and so that's why the big push is that these wave pools are going from amusement type backgrounds, right? Where I'd say have a wait for at at Disney World or something like that. To hey, these are just kind of inland mental health treatment facilities and inland treatment facilities for insert affliction here. And so that's already we have case studies of those existing today and being operational, having surf therapy happening at those parks today, right now. But it is accelerating and growing rapidly, and I'm excited for the future. And also, Courtney, what you said about um, you hope that obviously the government today will adopt more of this. I actually sent my books to the health department a few months ago because I said, hey, you guys have got to look into surf therapy. It is being prescribed in the UK. It
Mhm.
is being used in all these different areas. The data is completely unanimous. This needs to be adopted here in the US because the US is really lagging in this. Australia is far ahead of it. The UK is the leader globally. Why can't America be the leader in this space? We have the resources. We have everything we need. We just need more governmental adoption. And so I sent my books there and said, hey, please research this. We'll see if anything happens. I'm not sure, but I totally agree with that, and I am positive in that regard.
Good. I hope so too. Now, and there might be stuff on your website, but for behavioral health professionals, basically, how can we kind of help get people more involved with surf therapy, prescribe it to our clients? Are there different, like on your website, do you have different areas or states that have surf therapy clubs? And how can we become more involved with this?
So I would say number one, go to an event or go to join volunteer for a day with a group. I guarantee you there's one near you. There has to be one near you. And if not, email me and I can find one for you. It's like I said, it's so just relevant today, and that's one of the great things about this. But I would say go and do what I did. Just show up one day, show up one morning, whatever day that is, and just be a fly on the wall. Listen, speak, talk to the participants, talk to the participants' family around them, and hey, like what's this day going like for you? Is this a good experience? Is this a bad experience? I'm a clinician. I'm curious. And be there, be a volunteer, whether that's getting the surfboards out of the vehicles, whether that's handing out rash guards, whether that's helping, hand out sunscreen, whether that's getting in the water as a first-time volunteer, whatever that is, I recommend plugging into your local surf therapy group and getting involved. That's what I would say number one. As far as where you can do that, I don't have it on my website, but if you look at the International Surf Therapy Organization called
Mhm.
ISTO, ISTO, if you go on their website, they have a list of every single surf therapy group that they are partnered with. That's the majority of them around the world. Um, and if not, I'll just dig around in your community and see if there's someone doing it near you. It could be a very big and well-refined organization, or it could be one clinician who was touched by this and says, "Hey, this works, and this is important for me to do." So just be aware that it can come in all shapes and sizes. And so yeah, and I would say get plugged in, get involved, and just ask questions. See what the participant stories are. See what the volunteer stories are. Why are they there on a Tuesday morning when they could be doing something else? I guarantee you'll meet other practicing clinicians. You'll meet people who have been, affected by it, and you'll hear some stories of life change, and you'll hear some stories of how surfing has been life saving as well. And those are two statements, two sentences that I am very careful to say, but I have the data and the testimonials to really back that up. So yeah, so get involved, and I would say just kind of keep an eye on the sector as well. It is rapidly growing. Um, I'm excited for what's to come with it. It just goes back to a nature-based therapy. And even if, again, like even if you go and you say, "Hey, I don't want to surf, I just want to watch," as a participant, right? You can sit on the beach and make sandcastles all day. They're not going to, there's no pressure at these events to provide an answer, to really do anything. It's, hey, what is your skill level? Do you want to be pushed? Do you want to be motivated? Do you want to stand up on a wave and surf? Do you want to get pushed on a wave and ride on your belly? Do you want to ride on your knees? Do you want to ride laying down? Do you want to wear goggles? Whatever it is that you want to do, that's what these instructors are really facilitating, and then what that growth plan looks like for you as come back to whatever organization you're involved with. So there's no pressure. There's no uh, yeah. I just think with a lot of modalities and medicine say there kind of is that inherent pressure to, hey, tell me an answer, or let's see what this treatment does. Let's just hope for the best. With this, it's, hey, you can get as involved as you want with it as a participant, as an instructor, or as little involved as possible. So get involved, get plugged in with the International Surf Therapy Organization. They do webinars often. They do yearly conferences, which is great to be a part of. That's kind of the global hub. You'll meet a lot of people like me who have been, touched and affected by this, and you'll hear stories that'll change your life for sure. And just keep an eye on the sector. And I'm excited to see how it grows, and more so because the more it grows, the more people it's going to help and affect and change their lives, and in many ways save lives.
Behavioral health professionals bring something extraordinary into the world: empathy, expertise, and a steadfast dedication to healing. But this calling isn't easy. It demands more than compassion. It requires continuous learning, staying current with research, refining clinical skills, and building resilience together. That's why we created Hatherley. Hatherley is a lifelong learning, peer education, and connection platform designed exclusively for behavioral health professionals like you. Psychiatrists, psychologists, counselors, social workers, psychiatric nurses, addiction specialists. For over 40 years, we've been a trusted partner in your professional journey, delivering innovative, integrated, and accessible continuing education, backed by the community, free from commercial influence. Whether you're seeking to expand your knowledge, earn CE or CME credits, or engage with fellow professionals across disciplines, Hatherley is here for lifelong learning, for peer connection, for professional growth. Hatherley, let's shape the future of mental health together.